A contractor in West Texas sold 14 Caterpillar machines in the spring of 2024. Excavators, dozers, a pair of 950 loaders, a motor grader. He had run yellow iron for 31 years. Every machine on every job site he ever operated had the Caterpillar triangle on the hood. His father ran Cat equipment before him. His grandfather leased Cat dozers to clear pipeline right-of-way in the Permian Basin in 1968. 3 generations of one family, one brand, one color. Then he loaded every machine onto lowboys and shipped them to auction. Every single one. He is not alone. And the reason he walked away from Caterpillar is the same reason thousands of American operators are doing the same thing right now. To understand why, you have to understand what Caterpillar used to be. Not the corporation that trades on the New York Stock Exchange today. The company that earned the loyalty in the first place. There was a time when buying a Caterpillar machine was the simplest decision an operator could make. You called your local dealer. You knew the man behind the parts counter by name, because he had been there for 15 years, and his father had been there before him. The dealer was a family business. The relationship between the operator and that dealer was built on handshakes and repeat business, not corporate mandates. The machines themselves were designed to be fixed. That was the entire point. Caterpillar built equipment for men who worked in places where the nearest service truck might be 2 hours away. A dozer pushing dirt on a pipeline spread in West Texas. A loader working a quarry in eastern Kentucky. An excavator digging footings in northern Alberta in January, when the wind chill drops to 40 below and the hydraulic oil thickens to syrup. These machines had to run. And when they broke, and they always broke eventually, the operator or his mechanic had to be able to fix them in the field. Caterpillar understood that. The engines were mechanical. The 3406, the 3408, the C15. These were engines that a man with a set of wrenches, a service manual, and 30 years of diesel experience could diagnose, tear down, and rebuild without asking permission from anyone. The hydraulic systems used standard components. The electrical systems were simple enough that a competent mechanic could trace a wiring fault with a test light and a voltmeter. Parts were available, not just from the dealer, but from aftermarket suppliers who machined compatible components. The operator had options. He had control. The machine belonged to him in every meaningful sense of the word. He owned it. He maintained it. He decided when it was fixed, how it was fixed, and who fixed it. That relationship between the man and the machine was the foundation of Caterpillar's brand. It was not marketing. It was not a slogan. It was earned trust. A contractor who ran Cat equipment knew that if a hydraulic pump failed on a Friday afternoon, he could pull it, drop it on the workbench, and have a rebuilt pump back in the machine by Monday morning. He did not need to call a hotline. He did not need to wait for a dealer technician with a proprietary laptop. He did not need a software authorization code. He needed a torque wrench and a clean workspace. And the dealers reinforced that trust. The old Cat dealers, the family-owned operations that served a territory for 40 or 50 years, they understood their customers. They stocked the parts that moved. They ran service schools for local mechanics. They carried rebuild kits for engines and transmissions because they knew their customers would rather rebuild than replace. The dealer made money, the operator kept his machines running, and Caterpillar sold parts and iron to a customer base that had no reason to look anywhere else. It was a system that worked for everyone involved. That era's over. The change did not happen overnight. It started in the early 2000s, when emissions regulations began requiring electronic engine management. The Environmental Protection Agency tightened diesel emission standards in phases, and by the time Tier 4 regulations took full effect around 2014, every new Caterpillar machine rolling off the line carried an engine controlled entirely by software. The mechanical fuel injection systems were gone. The simple wiring harnesses were gone. In their place were electronic control modules, dozens of sensors, diesel exhaust, fluid injection systems, diesel particulate filters, and software that governed every function, from fuel injection timing to DPF regeneration cycles. The first generation of Tier 4 machines was rough. Operators reported constant DPF regeneration issues, DEF system failures in cold weather, and D-rates that shut machines down in the middle of production. The trade publications were full of letters from frustrated contractors. Equipment World, Construction Equipment Magazine, forums on heavy equipment forums, and contractor talk. The complaints were consistent. The machines run fine when they run, But when something trips in the emissions system, the operator is helpless. He cannot diagnose it. He cannot fix it. He has to call the dealer and wait. Caterpillar's response was not to open the diagnostic architecture. Instead, the company launched Cat Connect, a telematics platform with subscription pricing that added another layer of corporate control over the machines. Cat Connect was positioned as a fleet management tool, and it does provide useful data. But the practical effect was to create a third revenue stream on top of the machine sale and the dealer service monopoly. Now Caterpillar was selling the machine, controlling the service, and charging a recurring fee for the data. Now, emissions regulations were necessary. Nobody disputes that. The air quality improvements from cleaning up diesel exhaust have been significant. But the way Caterpillar implemented the technology created something that went far beyond emissions compliance. The electronic control modules on modern Cat machines are locked. Not locked in the sense that they are difficult to access. Locked in the sense that only a Caterpillar dealer, using Caterpillar's proprietary diagnostic software, can read the fault codes, reset the systems, and authorize repairs. An independent mechanic with 30 years of experience on Cat equipment, a man who has rebuilt transmissions and replaced main bearings and repaired hydraulic cylinders on machines across 3 decades, cannot plug into a modern Cat ECM and read what is wrong. The diagnostic port is there, the codes are there, but the software to interpret them is licensed exclusively to authorized Caterpillar dealers. The independent mechanic is locked out. That is the first layer. The second layer is parts. On modern Cat machines, certain components can only be installed by a dealer. Emissions-related sensors, specific hydraulic valves, software updates that are required after component replacement. If you change a DPF sensor on a late-model Cat excavator, the machine may not run until a dealer technician connects to the ECM and authorizes the new part. The machine knows the part was changed. The software requires a handshake from the dealer's system before it will accept the replacement. The operator bought the part. The operator's mechanic installed the part, but the machine will not run until the dealer says so. That is the second layer. The third layer is Cat Connect. This is Caterpillar's telematics platform. It is a subscription service. Cat Connect monitors the machine's location, hours, fuel consumption, idle time, fault codes, and maintenance intervals. The data is transmitted from the machine to Caterpillar's servers and made available to the dealer. The operator can access some of this data, but the full diagnostic capability lives on the dealer's side. The machine is reporting on itself constantly to the company that sold it, and the operator is paying a subscription fee for the privilege of partial access to his own machine's data. Here is what this looks like in practice for the average owner-operator. His excavator throws a fault code on a Tuesday morning. The machine derate kicks in, cutting engine power to protect the emissions system. The operator is on a job site with a deadline. He has a concrete pour scheduled for Thursday. He needs the excavator running. He pulls out his phone and checks the fault code against an online forum, because that is what operators do now. The forum tells him it is probably a DEF quality sensor. A $60 part, 20 minutes to swap it. His mechanic has done this repair 100 times on other brands. But on this machine, he cannot diagnose the code without dealer software. He calls his Cat dealer. The service department books him for the following week, because they are backed up with warranty work on new machines. He pushes. He explains the deadline. They offer to squeeze him in on Friday, but the service rate is $150 to $250 per hour, depending on the dealer territory. The technician arrives with the dealer laptop, runs the scan, confirms the DEF quality sensor. 2 hours of diagnostic time billed. The repair requires a part that only the dealer can source and install, because the ECM needs to be reflashed after the replacement. The machine has been down for 10 days, by the time it runs again. The operator has been paying for a rental excavator to keep his job site moving. The total cost of what should have been a $60 sensor and 30 minutes of wrench time from his own mechanic is now $4,000 or more. And that concrete pour got pushed back a week. Multiply that across a fleet. Multiply that across a year. You begin to understand why operators are angry. The right to repair movement has been fighting this for years. Several U.S. states have passed or are actively considering legislation that would require manufacturers to provide independent repair shops with the same diagnostic tools, software, and documentation that authorized dealers receive. Massachusetts passed right to repair legislation for automobiles. Colorado and Maine have pushed similar bills for agricultural and heavy equipment. The Federal Trade Commission has stepped in as well, issuing enforcement actions against equipment manufacturers over repair restrictions. John Deere signed a Memorandum of Understanding with the American Farm Bureau Federation in 2023, agreeing to provide farmers with access to diagnostic tools. But Caterpillar has not made the same concessions. The lockdown on Cat equipment remains largely intact. If this is the kind of story that matters to you, hit subscribe. This channel covers the machines, the operators, and the industry that built this country. More content like this is coming every week. The men walking away from Caterpillar are not doing it casually. These are operators with deep roots in the brand. They are making calculated decisions based on real costs and real frustrations. Consider the profile of a Texas oil country contractor, a man who has run cat iron on pipeline spreads and well pad construction for decades. His fleet was entirely yellow. Every excavator, every dozer, every loader. When the dealer service bills started climbing and the downtime started stretching from days into weeks, he did the math. He looked at what he was spending on dealer-only diagnostics, on subscription telematics, on parts that required dealer authorization. And he compared that to what he used to spend when his own shop could handle 90% of the maintenance. The numbers told him to leave. So he did. He auctioned the fleet and started buying equipment from manufacturers who have not locked down their machines the same way. Then there is the Iowa farmer. Cat sells agricultural equipment through certain dealer networks, and the same ECM lockdown architecture applies. A farmer running a Cat track-type tractor for land clearing or a Cat telehandler for feed operations faces the same diagnostic barriers. When the machine goes down during planting season or harvest, every hour matters. A farmer cannot wait 10 days for a dealer technician. He cannot absorb $200 an hour for a diagnostic scan. The older farmers, the ones who grew up turning wrenches on their own equipment, are the most frustrated. They have the knowledge to fix the machine. They have the tools. They have decades of experience. What they do not have is the software permission. And in West Virginia, a coal hauling contractor watched his operating costs climb year after year on his late model Cat trucks. The DEF systems, the emission sensors, the regeneration cycles that pull a truck out of service for 45 minutes at a time. When a regeneration fault locks the truck down and only a dealer can clear the code, a coal hauler loses an entire shift of revenue. This contractor did not switch to a competing brand overnight. He started by buying one Volvo articulated hauler, then another. Then he replaced a Cat excavator with a Hyundai. Each time, his independent mechanic could access the diagnostic system. Each time, the parts were available from multiple suppliers. Each time, the cost of ownership dropped. These stories are representative. The trade press has documented this pattern across oil country Texas, Midwestern farming operations, and Appalachian mining and coal hauling. The operators leaving Cat are not entry-level buyers who got sticker shock. They are experienced men who ran Cat equipment for decades and reached a breaking point. Where are they going? The answers vary by region and application, but several patterns are clear. First, a significant number of operators are buying older Caterpillar machines. Pre-Tier 4 equipment from the 1990s and early 2000s does not carry the same lockdown architecture. A Cat 320 excavator from 2003 has a mechanical simplicity that modern machines do not. The ECM is either absent or minimal. The hydraulic system uses standard components. The engine can be serviced by any qualified diesel mechanic. These older machines command a premium on the used market precisely because they are repairable. An operator will pay more for a 20-year-old Cat than for a comparable 10-year-old machine, because the 20-year-old machine is the one he can actually fix. Second, Korean and Japanese manufacturers have gained significant ground. Hyundai, Doosan, and Kobelco have expanded their North American dealer networks and priced their machines competitively. More importantly, their diagnostic architecture is more open. Independent mechanics report that fault codes on Hyundai and Kobelco excavators can be read with widely available diagnostic scanners. The parts supply chains include aftermarket options from multiple suppliers, not a single gatekeeper. The service rates at Korean and Japanese brand dealers tend to run lower than Cat dealer rates, sometimes significantly lower. For an operator, comparing total cost of ownership over a 5-year cycle, counting every dollar of diagnostic fees, every hour of downtime, every subscription payment, the math increasingly favors the alternatives. And the machines themselves have improved dramatically over the past decade. The days when Korean excavators were considered budget equipment are over. The operators who have switched report build quality and reliability that matches or exceeds what they were getting from late-model CAT machines. Third, certain Volvo and Liebherr models have attracted operators who want European engineering with less restrictive service requirements. Volvo's articulated haulers in particular have carved out a strong position in the North American market. Liebherr's excavators and loaders, while carrying a higher purchase price, have a reputation for diagnostic accessibility and long-term reliability that appeals to operators who plan to keep machines for 15 or 20 years. The used equipment market tells the story in prices. Clean, low-hour CAT machines from the pre-Tier 4 era sell for premiums that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. A well-maintained CAT D6 dozer from 2005 can bring more at auction than a comparable D6 from 2015, because the buyer knows the older machine will not lock him out of his own engine compartment. Caterpillar used to be the operator's partner. The company built machines for men who fixed their own equipment in remote locations under harsh conditions. That was the promise. That was the handshake. The operator bought the machine, and the machine belonged to him. Today, Caterpillar is something different. The machines are still well built. The engineering is still impressive. But the relationship has changed. The operator does not own the machine the way he once did. He owns the iron, the steel, the hydraulic cylinders, the undercarriage. But the software that makes it all run belongs to Caterpillar. The data the machine generates belongs to Caterpillar. The ability to diagnose and repair the machine is controlled by Caterpillar through its dealer network. The operator has gone from owner to tenant. He is paying for the privilege of operating equipment that he cannot fully service, cannot fully diagnose, and cannot fully control. This pattern already played out in European markets. Operators in Scandinavia and Western Europe began shifting away from manufacturers with lockdown service architectures years before the trend reached North America. The European right to repair movement is further along, and European operators had alternatives available sooner. What is happening now in the United States is the same trajectory, delayed by a few years, but accelerating. For Caterpillar, the financial risk is real. The company has built its modern business model around recurring revenue from dealer service, parts exclusivity, and telematics subscriptions. That model works as long as operators keep buying new CAT machines. But if the most experienced, most loyal segment of the customer base, the men who built their businesses on yellow iron, decides that the total cost of Caterpillar ownership no longer makes sense, then the model breaks. Not this quarter, not next year. But over the next decade, as the operators who remember the old Caterpillar retire or switch brands, and the younger generation of contractors grows up buying Hyundai and Volvo and used pre-Tier 4 iron, the installed base of new CAT machines in North America could shrink in ways that the company's shareholders have not yet priced in. The men in the cab know this. They have always known what their machines cost to run, down to the dollar per hour. They kept logbooks. They tracked fuel burn and maintenance costs and rebuild intervals. They are not making emotional decisions. They are making the same calculation they have always made. What does it cost to put this machine on a job site and keep it running? For 3 decades, the answer to that question was Caterpillar. For a growing number of American operators, it is not anymore. That 14-machine fleet in West Texas went to auction. The lowboys hauled them out one by one. The excavators, the dozers, the loaders, the grader. 31 years of yellow iron, gone in a week. The contractor who sold them did not enjoy it. He did not celebrate. He made a business decision. The machines he replaced them with are not yellow. They do not carry the Caterpillar triangle, but they belong to him. Every bolt, every sensor, every line of diagnostic code, he can fix them in his own shop, on his own schedule, with his own mechanic, and for the first time in 31 years, he does not need to call anyone for permission. That is why American operators are walking away from Caterpillar. If this story hit close to home, subscribe to this channel. Share this with someone who runs equipment for a living. The men who built this industry deserve to be heard.